Before we start, please give this video a like and subscribe if you enjoy our journey together. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now for you. Creating these deep dive videos takes a lot of work, and your support truly makes a difference. Now put your phone on silent, get comfortable, and let's begin a story. This story doesn't start in a club or at a rave. It begins on a clean, quiet laboratory in Imperial Germany. There, a chemist was just trying to solve a simple problem. His work had nothing to do with love, understanding, or all-night dancing. The year was 1912. The place was Darmstadt, Germany. It was a city of neat streets and sharp minds. It was home to a big drug company called Merck. Today, Merck is a global giant. Back then, it was a well-respected chemical company. Its history went all the way back to a 17th-century pharmacy. In one of their labs, a chemist named Anton Kohl, his CH, was doing what seemed like normal drug research. He wasn't looking for spiritual answers. He wasn't trying to expand the mind. He was working on something very ordinary. He was trying to make a medicine to help blood clot. The German military was interested. They wanted anything that could help soldiers survive the new, modern wars that were coming. Merck told Kohl, his CH, to make compounds that might stop bleeding. He was working with derivatives of safrole. Safrole is a natural compound found in sassafras oil. People used it to flavor root beer and to make perfume. Kohl, the CH, did a careful series of chemical reactions. He added an amine group here. He added a methyl group there. He created a new molecule. In the language of organic chemistry, he called it 30-methylene deoxy -N-methylamphetamine. He finished making it on December 24, 1912. It was an ironic Christmas gift to a world that didn't know what it was getting. Merck filed a patent for the compound. The patent number was 274,350. They didn't think it was a breakthrough. They just filed patents for everything. Companies did that. They built libraries of molecules that might be useful someday. The patent described how to make the drug in great detail, but it said almost nothing about what the drug did. There were no tests on people, no tests on animals, no notes on its effects. It was just written down, put in a file, and stored away in the company's records. For all practical purposes, MDMA was born. One day, it would be called Ecstasy, or Molly, or the love drug. But right then, it was immediately forgotten. It was like a chemical orphan, asleep in the pages of a German patent file. The world moved on. The First World War came and went. It destroyed a generation in the trenches. The 1922s arrived with their own favorite drugs, gin and jazz. Then, the Great Depression ruined economies. Another world war, even worse than the first, swept across the globe. Through it all, MDMA stayed in its paper prison. No one knew about it. No one studied it. Merck, like all companies, had bigger problems. The compound Kohl, the CH made, didn't help blood clot. They couldn't find any commercial use for it. It was a dead end. But in science, nothing stays hidden forever. The time after World War I brought new scientists. They had new funding and asked new questions. The Cold War wasn't just about soldiers and politics. It was a fight for the mind. The human mind, with all its weaknesses and strengths, was now a battlefield. In the 1952s, the U.S. military and spy agencies got very interested in behavior modification. The CIA was a big player. The Korean War had scary stories. Stories said American prisoners were brainwashed by communists. They came home talking about Marxist ideas. These reports might have been true or exaggerated, but they scared the intelligence community. If the enemy could control minds, America needed to do it too, or better, they needed a defense against it. This fear started one of the darkest projects in American science, Project 10K Ultra. MK Ultra was a huge secret program. It included hundreds of experiments on people who didn't know they were part of it. The subjects were prisoners, mental patients, prostitutes, and even CIA workers. The goal was to find drugs and methods for interrogation. They wanted to break a person's will. They wanted to get information or create obedient spies. CIA researchers worked through universities and private companies. This helped them hide their work. They tested a shocking number of substances: LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, magic mushrooms, barbiturates, amphetamines, and many other strange, man-made compounds. It was during this search that MDMA was found again. The full story is still unclear. Many documents were classified and then destroyed in the 1972. But we know this. In 1953 and 1954, the U.S. Army tested MDMA for toxicity. The tests were at the Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland. This was a place for chemical weapons research. They tested on animals, rats, dogs and monkeys. The army wasn't looking for emotional effects. They wanted something to disable, interrogate, or kill enemies. The results were written in dry, scientific language. The drug showed low toxicity at normal doses. The test animals showed some behavior changes, but nothing suggested it would work as a truth serum or a weapon. Once again, MDMA was labeled not useful. The reports were filed away, marked as secret, and forgotten. MDMA had been discovered twice and rejected twice. It would need a third discovery. This time, the discoverer wasn't interested in war or interrogation. He was interested in the human soul. This man would finally show the world what this molecule could really do. While the public debate raged, a small group of scientists and therapists refused to give up. They believed the early therapeutic work with MDMA was too promising to ignore. The key was to bring it out of the shadows and into the modern era of rigorous, controlled scientific research. Leading this charge was Drive, Rick Dublin and his organization, MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, founded in the wake of MDMA scheduling. MAPS had one clear mission: to prove through meticulous science that psychedelics and pathogens like MDMA could be safe and effective medicines. It was an uphill battle. Funding was scarce. Stigma was immense. Major universities and pharmaceutical companies wanted nothing to do with Schedule I drugs. But Dublin and his colleagues were patient and strategic. They started by funding animal studies to better understand the real risks of neurotoxicity. Then they slowly began the arduous process of seeking approval for human trials. The first major breakthrough came in the early 2000s. After years of applications and negotiations, MAPS finally received approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) to conduct a small pilot study. This study would test MDMA, assisted psychotherapy for patients with severe treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). PTSD was chosen for a reason. It is a devastating condition. People with PTSD are haunted by traumatic memories. They often feel numb, disconnected, and trapped in a state of constant fear. Traditional treatments, like talk therapy and certain medications, help many people, but for a significant group, these treatments don't work. These individuals were the focus of the new research. The therapy model was careful and structured. It was not about just giving someone a pill. It was MDMA, assisted psychotherapy. The drug was considered a tool to enable a therapeutic process. Here's how it worked. First, patients went through several preparation sessions with a trained therapist team. They built trust and set intentions for the medicine session. Then came the medicine session itself. The patient would take a controlled dose of pure, pharmaceutical-grade MDMA. They would lie on a couch, wear eye shades, and listen to specially curated music. 2 therapists, a man and a woman, would be present for the entire 6-8-hour session. Their role was not to direct the experience, but to provide a safe, supportive presence. They would offer gentle guidance if needed. The MDMA would reduce the fear and shame associated with the traumatic memory. This allowed patients to revisit and process the trauma without being overwhelmed. They could talk about it, feel it, and finally begin to make sense of it in a new way. In the weeks following, patients attended several integration sessions. Here they worked with their therapist to make sense of their insights and apply them to daily life. The results of the initial pilot study, published in 2010, were striking. Most participants who received MDMA-assisted therapy showed dramatic reductions in their PTSD symptom. Some no longer even met the criteria for a PTSD diagnosis after just a few sessions. These were people who had suffered for decades. The therapy seemed to help them where everything else had failed. This pilot study opened the door. It provided the preliminary evidence needed to launch larger, more definitive trials. MAPS began training more therapists in their strict protocol. They designed Phase 3 trials, the final, largest stage of research required for a drug to be approved by the FDA. The Phase 3 trials were randomized and double-blind. This is the gold standard in medical research. Some participants received MDMA with therapy. Others received a placebo, an active pill, with therapy. Neither the patients nor the therapist knew who got which treatment until the end. This design rules out the power of suggestion and proves the drug's specific effect. The results, released in 2021, were inclusive and historic. The data showed that MDMA-assisted psychotherapy was highly effective for severe PTSD. A significant majority of participants in the MDMA group experienced a clinically meaningful improvement. About 67% no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis after 3 sessions. In the placebo group, only 32% showed the same level of improvement. The therapy also had a good safety profile. No major safety issues were linked to the MDMA when given in this controlled setting. This was a monumental achievement. It was the strongest scientific evidence ever produced for a psychedelic-assisted therapy. Based on this data, the FDA granted MDMA-assisted therapy a breakthrough therapy designation. This status is reserved for treatments that show substantial improvement over existing options for serious conditions. It means the FDA will work closely with the developers to speed up the review process. The world is now on the cusp of a major change. As of this writing, the therapy is under formal review by the FDA. A decision on approval could come as soon as 2024. If approved, it would be the first time a psychedelic compound has been legally approved as a prescription medicine in the modern era. It would mark the end of MDMA's long journey from a forgotten patent to a banned party drug, to a recognized tool for healing. But this potential approval is not just about a drug. It is about a whole new model of mental health care. It recognizes that some deep psychological wounds need more than weekly talk therapy or daily pills. They need a powerful, catalyzing experience within a strong container of safety and professional support. The assistant role of the drug is key. It doesn't do the healing on its own. It allows the patient's own mind to do the work that was previously too frightening to attempt. The ripple effects of this research are already being felt. It has sparked a psychedelic renaissance. Major universities like Johns Hopkins, Imperial College London, and UC Berkeley have opened dedicated centers for psychedelic research. Investment is flowing into the field. There is now serious scientific exploration of psilocybin from magic mushrooms for depression and life anxiety, and of LSD and ayahuasca for various conditions. The story of MDMA is forcing a society-wide reconsideration. What if some of the most demonized drugs are actually powerful? Misunderstood medicines. What does it mean that a substance called ecstasy in the club is also showing profound results for healing the trauma of war veterans, sexual assault survivors, and first responders? This journey back to the clinic also highlights a deep irony. The decades of prohibition, meant to protect people, may have actually caused immense harm. They halted research, drove use underground, and created a black market filled with dangerous products. They also denied a generation of suffering people access to a potential treatment. The road to approval now is, in part, about correcting that historic mistake. However, major challenges remain ahead. If approved, how will this therapy be delivered? It is not a simple prescription. It requires many hours of highly trained therapists working in pairs. It will be expensive. Who will pay for it? Insurance companies? Governments? How will therapists be trained properly and ethically? How do we ensure access is equitable and not just for the wealthy? There are also legitimate concerns. Even its strongest supporters agree MDMA is not for everyone. They can raise heart rate and blood pressure. People with certain heart conditions cannot take it. It should not be mixed with some common medications. The therapeutic experience itself can be emotionally intense and challenging. Proper screening and expert care are absolutely essential. The shadow of recreational use also looms. How do you approve a medicine that millions of people use illegally for fun? Critics worry that medical approval will send a mixed message, suggesting the drug is safe for anyone to use. Proponents argue that exactly the opposite is true. Medical approval, with strict controls, clearly separates the dangerous, uncontrolled street drug from a pure, dose-specific medicine used in a professional setting. It replaces fear and misinformation with science, safety, and responsibility. The final chapter of MDMA story is still being written. Its path reflects our culture's deepest conflicts: fear versus curiosity, control versus exploration, punishment versus healing. From a chemist's lab in 1912 to a spy agency's files, to a therapist's quiet office, to the pulsating heart of a rave, and now back to the doctor's office, this molecule has held up a mirror to our society. It asks us difficult questions. How do we judge substances that can both harm and heal? Who gets to decide their purpose? Can we learn to respect the power of these compounds, to channel their potential for good while honestly addressing their risks? The journey of MDMA suggests that answers lie not in simple bans or blind celebration, but in careful, compassionate, and rigorous science. It reminds us that sometimes the key to healing our deepest wounds might come from the most unexpected places, even from a chemical orphan, once forgotten in a patent file, waiting for its true purpose to be understood. The potential FDA approval of MDMA-assisted therapy is not an ending. It is a beginning. It opens a door to a future where mental health care looks profoundly different. But standing in this doorway, we face complex questions that go far beyond a single drug or therapy. First, there is the practical reality of implementation. If approved, this will not be a pill you pick up at a pharmacy. It is a procedure, a lengthy and intensive form of psychotherapy enabled by a medicine. A full course of treatment might involve over 30 hours of therapist time, preparation sessions, the long medicine sessions themselves, and integration follow-ups. This makes it resource-intensive and, initially, very expensive. Who will bear this cost? Will health insurance companies cover it? Will it only be available to the privileged few who can pay out of pocket? Ensuring equitable access is a huge challenge. Organizations like MAPS are already planning therapist training programs and exploring cost models, but creating a fair system will be a massive undertaking. Then there is the question of the therapists themselves. This work requires special training. Therapists need to understand the unique effects of MDMA. They need to be comfortable sitting with intense emotions, They need to know how to support without directing, to hold a safe space for deep, sometimes difficult, psychological material. A whole new workforce needs to be trained, certified, and supported. This is not just about learning a technique, it's about adopting a different therapeutic mindset. The story also forces us to examine the very foundation of our drug laws. The Controlled Substances Act of 1970 established 5 schedules. Schedule I is for drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. For over 50 years, MDMA has been locked in this category alongside heroin, but the new research directly challenges that classification. How can a drug be in Schedule I if it is on the verge of being approved as a prescription medicine? This contradiction exposes a deep flaw in the system. Our drug schedules often reflect political and cultural fears more than scientific reality. The success of MDMA research is putting pressure on this entire framework. It is forcing lawmakers and regulators to ask, have we been wrong about other substances too? This leads to the delicate dance between medical use and recreational use. Critics have a valid concern. They worry that medical approval will normalize the drug. They fear it will send a message to young people that MDMA is safe. Supporters counter that education is the answer. We can clearly distinguish between a pure, measured dose in a clinic with professional and an unknown powder bought on the street. In fact, they argue, bringing the drug into the light of medicine reduces its mystery and allure. It allows for honest, science-based education about both its benefits and its real risks. The goal is not to celebrate the drug, but to respect its power and channel it properly. Looking globally, the picture is varied. While the U.S. moves toward medical approval, other countries are on different paths. In 2023, Australia became the first country to officially regulate MDMA and psilocybin as medicines for prescription by authorized psychiatrists. Israel has allowed compassionate use for PTSD for years. In parts of Europe, like Switzerland and the Netherlands, therapeutic use happens in more flexible clinical settings. At the same time, many countries maintain strict, punitive laws against any possession. This creates a patchwork world. A treatment that is legal and celebrated in one country can land you in prison in another. This global inequality raises ethical issues about who gets access to cutting-edge mental health care. Beyond PTSD, research is exploring other uses for MDMA-assisted therapy. Early studies are looking at its potential for social anxiety in autistic adults, for couples therapy where one partner has PTSD, and for treating severe anxiety related to life-threatening illness. The core idea is the same, using the drug's ability to reduce fear and increase empathetic connection to tackle conditions where those elements are central. The psychedelic renaissance sparked by MDMA's journey is also looking back at ancient traditions. Indigenous cultures have used plant-based psychedelics like ayahuasca and peyote in sacred healing ceremonies for centuries. Modern Western science is now, with caution and respect, studying these substances. There is an important dialogue happening between traditional knowledge and modern neuroscience. It is a reminder that the quest to heal the mind is ancient and universal. Our high-tech labs and clinical trials are, in a way, rediscovering what some cultures have known for a long time. Finally, the story of MDMA asks us the philosophical question: what is the purpose of consciousness-altering substances? Our society has given us two narrow stories. One story says they are dangerous drugs of abuse that destroy lives. The other, often from the recreational side, says they are simply tools for fun and pleasure. The therapeutic use of MDMA suggests a third, more profound story. It suggests that some of these substances can be tools for introspection, for healing, and for connection. They can help us see inside ourselves with clarity and compassion. They can help repair broken bonds both within our own minds and between people. This does not mean they are without risk. Cars are powerful tools that provide transportation, but they can also cause accidents. We respond with driver's education, safety regulations, and traffic laws. We don't ban cars. The future of MDMA and substances like it may lie in a similar model, one of education, careful regulation, and respect for their power. It is a model based on harm reduction and pragmatic benefit, rather than fear and prohibition. The molecule that Anton Coll (CH) synthesized on a Christmas Eve long ago has taken us on an incredible journey, from a forgotten patent to a military experiment, from a therapist's secret tool to the heartbeat of a global youth culture, from a demonized party drug to the forefront of a mental health revolution. Its path mirrors our own struggles with fear, control, compassion, and the eternal human desire to feel better, to connect deeply, and to understand ourselves. As we stand at this new threshold, the lesson of MDMA might be this: truth is rarely simple. The things we fear most can sometimes hold the key to our healing, and progress often comes not from choosing sides in an old war, but from having the courage to ask new questions, to look at the evidence with fresh eyes, and to embrace complexity with both wisdom and compassion. The final chapter will be written by our choices as patients, as doctors, as policymakers, and as a society deciding how to care for the human mind in all its complexity. To understand the full impact of MDMA, we must move beyond laboratories, courtrooms, and clinics. We must listen to the people whose lives have been touched by this molecule. Their stories paint a picture far more nuanced than any headline or policy paper. Consider the stories that exist in stark contrast. First, meet Sarah. She is a military veteran. For years after returning from service, she was trapped by PTSD. Loud noises sent her into a panic attack. She felt emotionally numb, disconnected from her family. Nightmares were a constant presence. Talk therapy helped a little, but the core fear remained locked inside. Then she joined a clinical trial for MDMA-assisted therapy in a safe room, with trained therapists beside her. She took the medicine. For the first time, she was able to revisit her most traumatic memories without being swallowed by terror. She could feel grief and sadness, but not the paralyzing fear. She described it as finally being able to look at the wound, clean it, and begin to heal. After a few sessions, her PTSD symptoms decreased dramatically. She started to reconnect with her spouse. She began to feel hope. For Sarah, MDMA was not a party drug. It was a crucial, life-changing medicine that gave her back her life. Now, meet David. He was a university student in the late 1990s. He loved electronic music and the rave scene. Ecstasy was a part of his weekend social life. He enjoyed the feelings of connection and energy they gave him on the dance floor, but over time, he started using it more frequently, not just at parties. He began to feel depressed and flat during the week. His memory felt foggy. He struggled to concentrate in class. Eventually, he realized he was using the drug to escape from underlying anxiety and loneliness, not to enhance his celebration. He stopped using it, but it took months for his mood and motivation to return to normal. For David, ecstasy was a recreational drug that provided short-term joy but contributed to longer-term problems. It was a part of a lifestyle that, for him, became unsustainable. Sarah and David represent the two poles of the MDMA experience: profound healing and potential harm. Their stories are both true. This is the central paradox. The same chemical can be a catalyst for recovery in one setting and a contributor to distress in another. The difference lies in intention, context, and support. The cultural footprint of MDMA is immense. It fundamentally shaped the sound and feel of electronic music. The euphoric build-ups, the breakdowns, the drops. These musical structures directly mirrored and amplified the MDMA experience. the drug-influenced fashion. From the comfortable clothes meant for dancing all night to the pacifiers and lollipops people used to manage jaw tension. It fostered a language of its own, rolling the love vibe PLUR. Even as the original rave culture evolved, MDM as influence persisted. It became embedded in mainstream festival culture. Its effects shaped how a generation thought about intimacy, conversation, and emotional expression. For many, their first experience on MDM, it was the first time they had a truly open, judgment-free conversation with a friend or even a stranger. It introduced them to the possibility of a different kind of social interaction, one based on empathy rather than competition. This cultural impact has a complicated legacy. On one hand, it promoted values of unity and acceptance. On the other, the commercialization of rave culture and the inconsistent quality of street drugs lead to exploitation and real danger. The initial idealism often clashed with the realities of a booming black market. The conversation about MDM is now at a critical point. We are moving from a paradigm of abstinence minus only to one that must grapple with medical use and responsible adult use. This is uncomfortable for many. It requires holding multiple truths at once. Truth 1. MDMA can cause harm, especially when used recklessly, in high doses, or mixed with other substances. Truth 2. MDMA has remarkable therapeutic potential when used in a controlled medical setting. Truth 3. Millions of people have used MDMA recreationally without catastrophic consequences, often reporting positive subjective experiences. Navigating these truths requires a new approach. Public education needs to be honest. Instead of just say no, the message could be, if you choose to use, here is how to reduce the risks. This is called harm reduction. It includes testing. Using drug checking kits to verify a substance is actually MDMA and not something more dangerous. Dosing. Starting with a low dose and understanding potency. Hydration. Drinking sensible amounts of water, not too little, not too much. Setting. Being in a safe, comfortable place with people you trust. Rest, giving your brain and body time to recover between uses. This pragmatic approach accepts that people will use drugs and aims to keep them as safe as possible. It treats drug use as a public health issue, not just a criminal justice issue. The future of MDMA will likely be multifaceted. We will see a medical pathway, with FDA-approved treatments for PTSD and possibly other conditions. Alongside it, there will continue to be a recreational sphere. The question is whether society can become smart enough to distinguish between the two, and to create policies that protect the medical use while minimizing the harms of the recreational use. The story of MDMA is, in the end, a story about us. It's about our search for connection in an often isolating world. It's about our desire to heal deep psychological wounds. It's about our struggle to balance personal freedom with public safety. This simple molecule, discovered over a century ago, has held up a mirror to our hopes, our fears, our contradictions, and our capacity for change. As we write the next chapter, the goal is not a world without MDMA, nor is it a world where it is used without care. The goal is a world where we understand its power, respect its risks, and harness its potential with wisdom, compassion, and scientific rigor. A world where someone like Sarah can find healing in a therapist's office, and where someone like David can make informed choices about his well-being. That is the challenging, but necessary, future this journey has prepared us for. The potential of MDMA-assisted therapy forces entire systems to change. Medicine, law, and even our social values are being asked to adapt. This transition is not smooth. It is full of tension, debate, and growing pains. Let's start with the medical system. Modern medicine loves simplicity. It prefers a pill you take daily. It is built for brief doctor visits and standardized treatments. MDMA-assisted therapy is the opposite. It is complex, lengthy, and deeply personal. It does not fit neatly into our current healthcare framework. Insurance companies will be a major hurdle. They operate on codes and predictable costs. How do you code an 8- a therapy session with a medicine? How do you justify the cost of 2 therapists for 1 patient? Proponents must prove this treatment is not just effective, but also cost-effective. They argue that curing severe PTSD saves money in the long run. It reduces other healthcare costs, lost work days, and social service needs. But convincing insurance companies requires solid data. The initial rollout will likely be slow and expensive. Therapist training is another massive system to build. It's not enough to know how MDMA works in the brain. Therapists need new skills. They must learn to be a quiet, supportive guide rather than an active interpreter. They need to manage intense, emotional releases. They must understand the importance of set and setting. Organizations are creating strict training programs. These programs include supervised practice. The goal is to build a network of skilled, ethical providers, but scaling this up to meet potential demand will take years. The legal system is also at a crossroads. The Schedule I status of MDMA is now in direct conflict with its medical potential. This creates a legal absurdity. A doctor in a clinical trial can legally administer MDMA, but the same compound and the same purity is a felony to possess outside that trial. This inconsistency is unsustainable. There is growing political movement to change this. Some lawmakers propose scheduling MDMA. Moving it to Schedule I or IV would acknowledge its medical use. It would make research much easier. It would also decouple the medical compound from the illegal street drug. However, Rave scheduling faces political opposition. Old fears about drug abuse and sending the wrong message are powerful. The debate is not just about science. It is about values and belief. On the streets, the law faces its own reality. Policing has not stopped ecstasy use. Instead, prohibition has created a dangerous market. People buy pills of unknown content. They fear seeking help if something goes wrong. Some forward-thinking cities and countries are experimenting with different approaches. They focus on harm reduction over punishment. For example, some music festivals now offer drug checking services. People can test their pills anonymously. They learn if their substance contains MDMA or something deadly. This is not about encouraging use. It is about saving lives. Evidence shows that when people find out a pill is not what they thought, they often choose not to take it. This is a practical, life-saving policy that accepts reality rather than denying it. Globally, the map of MDMA, a policy is a patchwork. Australia's decision to allow prescribed MDMA is a bold experiment. Europe has a range of approaches, from the pragmatic tolerance of the Netherlands to stricter regimes elsewhere. In many developing nations, laws remain harsh, with little distinction between medical and recreational use. This global inequality raises ethical questions. Should access to a breakthrough mental health treatment depend on your nationality? Underlying all these system changes is a shift in our cultural story. For decades, the dominant story was, drugs are bad. They destroy minds and lives. Just say no. The new evidence complicates that story. It suggests a more nuanced narrative. Some substances are powerful. They can cause great harm when misused, but they can also cause great healing when used wisely and respectfully. Our job is to tell the difference and to manage the risk. This new narrative is uncomfortable. It requires thinking in shades of grey. It asks us to hold two ideas at once, caution and openness. For people who have lost loved ones to drug abuse, this feels like a betrayal. For scientists and patients who have seen healing, it feels like justice. The transition will be messy. There will be setbacks. There will be sensational news stories if someone has a bad reaction in therapy. There will be politicians who use fear to argue against change, but the direction seems clear. The genie is out of the bottle. The scientific evidence for therapeutic benefit is too strong to ignore. The journey of MDMA, from lab to club to clinic, mirrors a larger human journey. It is a journey from fear-based prohibition toward knowledge-based regulation. It is a move from seeing psychoactive substances only as threats, to seeing them also as tools we must learn to use with great care and respect. This is not just about one drug. It is about how we, as a society, deal with powerful technologies that alter consciousness. It sets a precedent. The lessons we learn from integrating MDM, the end to medicine, will guide how we handle future discoveries in neuroscience and psychology. The final system that must change is our own mindset. We must learn to ask better questions. Instead of "is this drug good or bad?" we might ask, under what conditions does this compound help? Under what conditions does it harm? How do we create the conditions for help and avoid the conditions for harm? Answering these questions requires humility. It requires listening to scientists, therapists, patients, and yes, even former users. It requires looking at data, not just dogma. The story of MDMA shows us that truth is often found in the complicated middle ground, not at the extreme poles of the debate. Our systems must learn to operate in that nuanced middle ground. That is the great challenge and the great opportunity that lies ahead. The ripple effects of MDMA as journey are touching places far beyond the therapist's office. It is reshaping conversations about mental health, personal freedom, and how we collectively seek well-minded being. For a long time, society viewed mental illness in a certain way. It was seen as a chemical imbalance, often fixed with daily medication, or it was seen as a thinking error, fixed with talk therapy. MDMA-assisted therapy offers a different model. It suggests that some mental wounds are emotional and memory-based. They are locked in the nervous system by fear. Healing them requires safely accessing those emotions and memories. The medicine doesn't do the healing, it temporarily eases the fear that blocks the healing process. This idea is powerful. It is changing how we think about trauma, PTSD, and even conditions like depression and anxiety. It points to a future of mental health care that is more experiential and body-aware, not just cognitive or chemical. This shift also changes the role of the patient. In this therapy, you are not a passive recipient of a pill. You are an active explorer of your own inner world. The therapist is your guide, but you are the one doing the work. This empowers people. It gives them a sense of agency in their own recovery. For many, this is a revolutionary and hopeful idea. At the same time, the story forces us to confront our relationship with pleasure and transcendence. Human beings have always sought ways to alter consciousness through meditation, music, dance, ritual, or substances. The ecstasy experience, both the drug and the feeling, taps into a deep desire, the desire to feel connected, to belong, to experience joy beyond the ordinary. Rave culture, for all its flaws, was a massive, grassroots experiment in creating that feeling collectively. Society often views this search with suspicion. We label the pursuit of transcendence through chemicals as escapism or abuse. But what if that desire points to a genuine human need? The success of therapeutic MDMA suggests that the state it produces reduced fear. Increased empathy isn't just for fun. It has a biological function that can be harnessed for repair. This blurs the line we try to draw between medicine and recreation. It asks, can a state of consciousness be both healing and pleasurable? The answer seems to be yes. Looking forward, the path is not towards a world where MDMA is everywhere. It is towards a world of differentiated use. Imagine a future with clear, separate pathways. The medical pathway, highly regulated, pharmaceutical-grade MDMA is used only by trained professionals for specific conditions. It is treated with the same seriousness as surgery or other intensive procedures. The adult use pathway. This is the bigger challenge. Some places may move towards legal regulation for adults, similar to cannabis. This would allow for quality control, honest education, and harm reduction. It would take the market away from criminals. This idea is controversial and far off in many areas, but it is part of the conversation. The cultural space. The influence of the MDMA experience on music, art and social connection will continue. The values of empathy and unity it highlighted remain in our culture. Even as the drug itself becomes a medical treatment, there will be problems. Medicalization will be slow and unequal. If adult use is ever regulated, there will be risks of over-commercialization, just as we see with alcohol. The key is learning from past mistakes. The goal is to avoid the two historic extremes. The fear-driven war on drugs and the reckless, unregulated party culture of the past. The legacy of MDMA is a lesson in humility. It shows that a substance is not inherently good or evil. Its impact depends almost entirely on the context humans create around it. In a context of greed and ignorance, it caused harm. In a context of curiosity and care, it revealed healing potential. In a context of love and music, it created moments of collective joy. The molecule is a tool. We are the ones who decide how to use it. For over a century, our decisions were largely defined by fear and control. Now we are slowly entering an era defined by science, compassion, and a more honest acknowledgement of human nature. The final page of this story is not about a chemical. It is about us growing up. It is about learning to handle powerful tools with wisdom, respect, and a primary concern for human well-being. The journey of MDMA, from a forgotten pattern to this moment of possibility, shows that change is slow, difficult, but ultimately possible. It is a testament to the stubborn power of evidence, the enduring need for healing, and the human capacity to evaluate even our deepest convictions. Why does the story of a single molecule captivate us so deeply? Because it transcends science and law. It acts as a mirror reflecting our collective human desires, fears, and contradiction. We all crave connection. Loneliness is a modern epidemic. We are digitally networked, yet often feel profoundly isolated. The state of openness and empathy in MDMA catalyzers speaks directly to this core desire. In clubs, it let people lower their guard and embrace strangers. In therapy, it allows patients to reconnect with buried parts of themselves and with others. This reminds us that the healthy human psyche requires safe, profound emotional bonds. The drug is merely a temporary catalyst, highlighting a fundamental need. We all fear losing control. Society is built on order. Mind-altering substances represent a potential threat to that order. They can make people act outside conventional roles. This is why the fear of MDMA echoes fears of LSD or cannabis. Touches a deep anxiety about stability. The regulatory impulse is, at its root, the fear of chaos. Yet, MDMA as medical application reveals another possibility within a carefully constructed therapeutic container. A temporary release of control lowering psychological defenses can become the path to a healthier internal order integration. The issue may not be whether to alter consciousness, but how to guide that change safely and intentionally. We all seek meaning and relief. Whether a trauma survivor seeks respite from haunting memories, or an individual seeks temporary escape from daily stress on the dance floor, the root is similar: a desire for relief from suffering under pursuit of meaning, or joy beyond the mundane. MDMA, the story forces a question: is chemically facilitated relief or insight real? Therapeutic research suggests that when followed by integration, such experiences can produce genuine, lasting positive change. This implies an experience's value may lie not in its origin, but in how we process and incorporate it into our lives. Our relationship with drugs is deeply split. We readily accept caffeine to start the day, alcohol to socialize, and prescription sleep aids. These are normalized social lubricants. Yet, once a substance becomes associated with escapism, hedonism, or danger, we exile it. MDMA's journey highlights this arbitrary double standard. Its medicalization directly challenges rigid categorization. Can a nightclub substance also be a serious medicine? Evidence says yes. How much of our judgment is based on science, and how much on cultural bias and historical accident? Ultimately, this story points to a foundational question: how do we approach the plasticity of our own minds? We know we can change our brains through education, experience, meditation, and exercise. Psychoactive substances are another, more direct tool. Like any powerful tool, electricity, fire, they can be used for construction or destruction. MDMA, as century-long odyssey, resembles humanity's apprenticeship in using this mind tool. We have moved through phases of ignorant discovery, militarized misuse, underground exploration, commercialized euphoria, panicked suppression, and now toward cautious medical application. It is a learning curve from recklessness toward responsibility. What does the future hold? Imagine 2 decades from now. MDMA-assisted therapy could be a standard psychiatric option for trauma. Research on its use in couples therapy or end-life care may be mature. In some regions, strictly regulated, quality-controlled recreational MDMA for adult use in licensed venues might exist, akin to legal cannabis markets. The dangerous black market for adulterated pills would shrink, but this won't happen automatically. It requires sustained scientific integrity and a rejection of narratives that either glorify or demonize. It requires public education on the critical differences defined by dose, setting, supervision, and intention. It requires lawmakers to craft policy based on evidence, not fear. For each of us, this story invites a new literacy: psychoactive substance literacy. This means respecting their power. They are not toys. Distinguishing context, self-use in a club and clinical therapy are fundamentally different. Valuing evidence, prioritizing scientific research over anecdote or propaganda. Embracing complexity, rejecting simplistic good versus bad judgments. MDMA, this chemical seed once forgotten, has grown into a lesson about our own nature. It teaches that healing and danger can share a root, that our deepest fears may hide keys to healing, and that progress lies in navigating our inner possibilities with wisdom and compassion. This story is still being written, and the authors are all of us through our choices, openness, and courage to pursue truth and well-being. Why does the story of a single molecule captivate us so deeply? Because it is not just about science or more. It acts as a mirror, reflecting our shared human desires, fears, and contradictions. We all crave connection. In modern life, loneliness is an epidemic. We are connected by networks, yet we often feel profoundly isolated. The state of openness and empathy that MDMA catalyzes speaks directly to this core desire. In the club, it lets people drop their guards and hug strangers. In the therapy room, it lets patients reconnect with a buried self and with others. This reminds us that the healthy human mind needs safe, deep emotional bonds. The drug is only a temporary catalyst, but it reveals a fundamental need. We all fear losing control. Society is built on order. The mind represents a potential threat to this order. They can make people act abnormally, stepping outside their usual roles. This is why the fear of MDMA feels similar to the fear of LSD or cannabis. It touches a deep-seated anxiety about safety. What would society become if everyone could easily change their state of consciousness? The impulse to regulate is, at its root, a fear of chaos. The medical use of MDMA shows another possibility within a carefully built container, the therapeutic setting. A temporary loss of control lowering psychological defenses can be the very path to a healthier order psychological integration. The issue may not be whether to alter consciousness, but how to guide the change safely and with purpose. We all seek meaning and relief. Whether it is a trauma survivor seeking relief from nightmarish memories, or an ordinary person seeking a temporary escape from daily stress on the dance floor, the root is similar: a desire for respite from suffering, whether acute or chronic, in pursuit of meaning or joy beyond the ordinary. The story of MDMA forces us to ask, are these pursuits valid? Is relief or insight gained through chemical means real or valid? The therapeutic research suggests an answer. Research, when followed by integration work, such an experience can lead to real, lasting positive change. This implies that the value of an experience may not lie in its source, whether drug-induced or spontaneous, but in how we work with it and weave it into our lives. Our relationship with drugs is split. We readily accept caffeine to start the day, alcohol to socialize, and prescription sleep aids to rest. These are social lubricants, widely accepted. Yet, once a substance becomes associated with escapism, hedonism, or danger, we cast it out. The journey of MDMA highlights the arbitrariness of this double standard. Its medicalization challenges this rigid categorization. Used in nightclubs also be a serious medicine. This prompts us to ask how much of our judgment about a substance is based on scientific fact and how much on cultural bias and historical accident. This story ultimately points to a fundamental question: how do we approach the plasticity of our own minds? We know we can change our brains and minds through education, experience, meditation, and exercise. Psychoactive substances are another tool, a more direct and powerful one. Like any powerful tool, electricity, fire, cars, it can be used for construction or for destruction. The century-long drift of MDMA is like humanity's apprenticeship in learning to use this mind tool. We have passed through phases of ignorant discovery, militarized misuse, underground exploration, commercialized euphoria, panic suppression, and are now moving toward cautious medical application. It is a learning curve from reckless use toward responsible use. What does the future hold? Imagine a scene 20 years from now. MDMA-assisted therapy might be a standard psychiatric option for trauma. Research on its use in couples therapy and life care or specific anxiety disorders may be well established. At the same time, strictly quality controlled, low dose recreational MDMA illegally licensed venues might be a legalized option in some regions, similar to cannabis in some places today. Dangerous market for adulterated pills would shrink as a result, but this won't happen automatically. It requires sustained scientific integrity and a rejection of extreme narratives that ayes public education to help people understand the critical differences made by dose, setting, supervision, and intention. It requires lawmakers to find the courage to craft policy based on evidence, not fear. For each of us, this story invites the development of a new literacy: psychoactive substance literacy. This means respecting their power, understanding they are not toys and can have profound effects. Distinguishing context, knowing that self-use in a club and clinician administered therapy in a clinic are two entirely different things. Valuing evidence, listening to scientific research, not just anecdote or scare tactics. Embracing complexity, letting go of simple good versus bad judgments, and accepting the nuanced reality. MDMA, this chemical seed forgotten and rediscovered, has ultimately grown into a deeper understanding of our own nature. It tells us that healing and danger can sometimes share the same root, that our deepest fears may hide the keys to healing, and that the path forward lies in using wisdom and compassion to navigate the inherent, fragile, yet powerful possibilities within us all. This story is still being written, and the authors are all of us through our choices, our openness, and our courage to pursue truth and well-being. We have followed a single molecule across a century, from a laboratory shelf to a secret military report, from a therapist's quiet tool to the pulsating core of a global youth movement, and now to the threshold of modern medicine. This journey is more than a scientific or legal case study. It is a profound lesson in how societies learn, resist, and ultimately adapt to complex truths. As we stand at this potential inflection point with medical approval on the horizon, it is time to synthesize what we have learned and look clearly at the path ahead. That path is not a straight line toward universal acceptance. It is a winding road filled with practical hurdles, ethical dilemmas, and the constant tension between hope and caution. The immediate future: integration and implementation. If regulatory approval is granted, the real work begins: integration. How does a powerful, experiential therapy find its place in our existing healthcare system? The clinic model: it will likely start in specialized clinics, not local doctors' offices. These clinics will need specific design: safe, comfortable, non-hospital-like rooms. They will require teams of specially trained therapists who can work in pairs for extended sessions. This is a new, resource-intensive model of care. The cost question: who pays? A full course of treatment may cost thousands of dollars. Will insurers cover it? They will demand robust data on long-term outcomes and cost-effectiveness, proving that healing severe PTSD reduces other long-term medical and social costs will be key. Initially, access may be limited and unequal, a challenge that advocates must prioritize. The training pipeline: a new profession, or a new specialization within psychotherapy, must be built from the ground up. Training programs must be rigorous, emphasizing ethics, safety, and the unique skills of inner space guidance. They must also guard against therapist burnout, as this work is emotionally demanding. The parallel reality: recreational use and harm reduction. Even as the medical pathway develops, the recreational use of ecstasy will continue. This is the parallel reality that cannot be ignored. Therefore, a pragmatic public health approach is more critical than ever. Honest education must evolve beyond just say no. It should distinguish between medical use and recreational use, and focus on concrete harm reduction. Test your substances. Dose carefully. Stay cool and hydrated, but not over-hydrated. Use with trusted people, and allow time for recovery. Drug checking services: these should be expanded, not criminalized. Allowing people to test pills or in health centers saves lives by identifying deadly adulterants like fentanyl or PMA. It is a direct, evidence-based intervention that meets people where they are. Decoupling messages: society must learn to hold to ideas that a substance can be a dangerous street drug and a valuable medicine. Context is everything. We do this with morphine street, opioid and an essential surgical analgesic-scribed Adderall. We can learn to do it with MDMA. The larger shift: a new paradigm for mental health. The impact of MDMA-assisted therapy may ultimately be greatest in how it changes our very model of mental health care. From chronic management to potential resolution, psychiatry often focuses on managing symptoms with daily medications. This therapy offers a paradigm of time-limited, intensive intervention aimed at processing the root cause of trauma, potentially leading to durable remission, not just management. The role of experience: it validates the power of experiential therapy. Healing is not just about talking about feelings, but about safely experiencing and processing them in a new way. The medicine facilitates a direct experience of safety and self-compassion, which can be more transformative than intellectual understanding alone. The therapist as guide, it redefines the therapist's role from an authority or interpreter to a skilled, compassionate witness and guide. This is a subtle but powerful shift that could influence psychotherapy as a whole. Unanswered questions and ongoing tensions. The story is not finished. Major questions remain. Neurotoxicity revisited while risks in controlled medical use appear low. The long-term effects of even therapeutic doses over a lifetime need ongoing study. One must continue to monitor this carefully. The doorway effect could successful medical use increase curiosity and risky recreational use. This is a valid concern. The counter-argument is that honest medicalization, by demystifying the drug and strictly controlling its medical form, could actually reduce the appeal of the dangerous black market version. Global justice. Will this treatment become available only in wealthy nations? How can research and access be made equitable globally? This is a profound ethical challenge. Conclusion: the wisdom of the middle way. The century-long story of MDMA argues against extremes. It shows the failure of reflexive prohibition and the dangers of unregulated hedonism. The most promising path forward appears to be the middle way, one of respect, regulation, and rigorous differentiation. It is a path that respects the power of the molecule and of the human psyche, regulates based on evidence and context, not fear or vested interest, differentiates clearly between a sacramental medicine, a clinical tool, and a recreational substance, applying appropriate rules to each. This molecule, 30-methylene-dioxymethamphetamine, is inert powder. It holds no inherent moral value. We as individuals and as a society imbue it with meaning through our choices. Our journey with it has been messy, painful, enlightening, and hopeful. It has revealed our capacity for both harm and healing, for fear and curiosity. The final lesson may be this: the greatest tool for navigating the future of psychedelics and empathogens is not a new drug, but an old virtue: wisdom. The wisdom to use powerful tools with great care. The wisdom to help those who are suffering. The wisdom to educate, not just punish. And the wisdom to remain humble, open to evidence, and committed to the complex, ongoing work of building a healthier world. This brings our narrative to a close. The molecule's journey continues, now in our hands.